Trying to understand or get some understanding, initial grip on David Harvey's conception of anti-value. And we had stopped here last time. So today we are going to start from at this point, I think. At this point, Harvey raises, so this is not from Harvey's own writing, but it's a book review of one of his books where he discusses the one of his book where he discusses the or introduces the concept of anti-value. So at this point, Harvey raises the concern that animates his study: the contradictory role of credit. The contradictory role of credit. Obviously, credit is very important for capitalism. Come back to this in a minute. Last time, yeah, okay. You need credit for investment, and basically, credit is the means through which non-capitalist money is converted into capitalist money or capital. Okay, so at this point, Harvey raises the concern that animates his study: the contradictory role of credit. Okay, what is the contradiction? We will know in a minute. Or interest-bearing capital. So at this point, Harvey raises the concern that animates his study: the contradictory role of credit or interest-bearing capital in the circulation of value. Okay, first, credit facilitates both production and consumption. So production, investors need money. They invest, they produce, and capital-intensive production processes require long-term loans. And consumption, obviously, in capitalism, you're producing things which people don't need. So you create demands for them, but not everybody has money to buy them. So you make available credit cards for other type of credit for consumers who don't have money at the time, so they can buy those things. Especially a type of consumption which requires a lot of money, like buying a house. So in a housing market, for example, financiers fund developers to produce housing, while the same financier lend to consumers to realize housing values in the market. So if people don't have money, then they can't buy houses, and they get money from banks. Similarly, developers, when they build buildings and houses, they need money to do all that. So they are dependent on the credit. So the whole capitalist system is dependent on this type of credit. So if there is no credit, there won't be any production. If there's no production, there won't be any things available to, like, there won't be any commodities available to be bought and sold, and if the consumers don't have money, then those things cannot be sold, or those things cannot be bought, and the cycle of capital accumulation breaks down, and the accumulation process either breaks down or slows down. So the purpose of accumulation for the sake of accumulation is not achieved. Okay, so the credit helps bridge or harmonize the movement from valorization to realization, the creation of value to realization, lubricating a crucial transition in the circulation of capital. But credit is a dangerous lubricant. Why is a dangerous lubricant? Because you need to pay the credit back. Because debts must be repaid. And the investors must pay back credits with interest to the banks as well as consumers. And when they can't do that, the cycle is broken, and sometimes there is a market crash and all that. Credit generates new incentives for investing in production. The frantic search for profit, Harvey writes, is supplemented by the frantic need to redeem debts. This accelerates the spiral of endless accumulation. But capitalists increasingly lend out money as interest-bearing capital rather than investing in production. So capital moved from production to finance. One of the reasons is overaccumulation and the concentration of capital and the lack of investment opportunities, profitable investment opportunities in the developed world. So then what happens is the investors move from production to lending out money and speculation and all that things. So rather than investing in productions, increasingly in advanced capitalism, people actually buy and sell debt itself, credit itself, and speculate on that basis, and because more profits can be made that way, more capital can be accumulated in that way. But it is dangerous because at the end of the day, this cycle cannot sustain itself without an anchor in real investment in production and etc. So the result is a massive accumulation of debts with no real chance that they will ever be redeemed. Ultimately, Harvey predicts the failure to redeem these debts will initiate the mother of all crises to the system of capital flow. Well, crises occur, 2008 crash, and before that, crashes happen. But what saves capitalism is the capitalist state. And what saves international capital is America and its wealthy allies. So it's the power of the state which sustains and regenerate these cycles after the crisis. Now here, I think he comes to the concept of anti-value, for which, I mean, one thing which I should mention is, okay, let's read a bit more so we finally come to know what he means by anti-value. For Harvey, the concept of anti-value provides the key to understanding these dynamics. What dynamics? The crisis. The failure to read will initiate the mother of all crises. So anti-value explains, the concept of anti-value explains why there is this mismatch between available credit and the ability to redeem the credit. Through a close reading of Marx, Harvey argues that value always exists in relation to its negation, anti-value. Okay. So anti-value is so whenever the circulation of capital stalled, value is temporarily negated because you can't produce, then you can't sell, and then you can't consume, and then you can't accumulate. So if commodities cannot be sold, for instance, value cannot be created or realized, as he says. And value, obviously, here I mean capitalist value, not the use value. Capitalist value is the exchange value, although Harvey doesn't seem to think that. He seems to think that exchange value is the means to create some positive value, which is the positive value of the capitalist cycle. So, but let's see. And during a crisis, capital undergoes a general devaluation. And so capital undergoes a general devaluation, the decrease in its value. I guess what he means is that there is less accumulation. I don't know. We'll see. Anti-value is thus omnipresent, a permanently disruptive force in the very gut of capital. Okay. In the very gut of capital circulation, the credit system okay. So now it's a bit. The credit system, Harvey argues, helps prevent devaluation by facilitating the passage from production to realization. It also ensures that money taken out of circulation through saving. So if saving is calling anti-value as well, because saving is the money which is not being used in production and accumulation. So okay, so saving, so whatever is that's the old Marxist argument. So out of circulation through saving, anti-value is returned to circulation as the interest bearing value. So when, let's see, okay, so basically his anti-value concept of anti-value is rehashing of an old Marxist argument, the argument by Marx himself. But here what he is saying is, so firstly, credit is very important for capitalism. For short-term but it becomes even more important for long-term capital investments. Okay. Now, as the scale of production increases, capitalism expands. Investments are tied for a long time. And this increases the demand for credit or savings, money, credit. And as the capitalism moves towards as capitalism develops, this becomes this demand increases, so the bank basically become more and more central to the capitalist system. And bank credit is, and Harvey is talking about bank credit. Bank credit is different from commercial credit. And the source of credit in capitalism is savings. Okay, and savings come from two corporations' own saving, but other are household saving. So the bank gather household savings from all over the country, and make these savings available for credit. So these are the banks who convert household saving into credit, and then those credit, the companies borrow that money and they invest and they create value. And we are talking about capitalist value, which is accumulation. So if this household saving, before bank assumed this role, these household savings were non-capitalist saving. They weren't part of the capitalist a production and accumulation cycle. But when banks, based on those savings, banks give out money as a credit, and that credit is invested in capital accumulation. Those household savings, which were non-capitalist savings and were not creating any capitalist value, are turned into capitalist credit, which creates capitalist value. Now, just imagine that those household savings, so the household savings, when they weren't being, collected by banks and issued as credit, it wasn't just that they weren't creating capitalist value. It's also that they were creating anti-value, in the sense that the money which could have been invested and used to create capital value is not being used for that purpose. So it's not just that the actual value is not being created, but also that anti-value is being created. That is, the opportunity to create capitalist value is being wasted. I think that's what he means by anti-value. We will go back to the text, but that's what I think he means by anti-value. So, for example, in a country like Pakistan, which is only a semi-capitalist country as far as its economy is concerned, large population of Pakistans don't have investment accounts. They don't have any accounts in banks, so their money is out of the circulation of capital investment and creation of value. So that money is not just not creating value in capitalist sense, but it's also creating anti-value. That is, it is wasting the opportunity to create value. And that's why the whole Islamic banking movement it's an imperialist project started by Nasser, and then basically during Faisal's regime, Saudi Arabia became its champion. The purpose of Islamic banking movement is to persuade Muslim masses to put their money in banks so it can be converted into capitalist money and capitalist value, and its anti-value function is reduced or removed altogether. So that's an example from a country which is not capitalist yet. But the same process can happen within mature capitalism as well. How does this process or similar type of process happens within mature capital or can happen within mature capital? Can happen, for example, if the products are not being sold, for example, at the rate anticipated, for whatever reason, people don't have enough money or people are not spending money, they are saving money for some other things. What it does is it reduces the production cycle. It reduces the production cycle because production cycles and its rate is dependent on the rate of the rate at which products is sold and their demand and all those things. That means that the demand for credit is decreased. And when the demand for credit is decreased, then what happens is savings pile up in bank, or so that's oil money is sitting there. So it's also accumulating. So accumulation of money increases, of money in the form of accumulation in the form of money holding increases, but the demand for credit decreases. Demand for this money decreases. It means that this money is not being invested. It means that although this money is accumulating here, but it could accumulate at a higher rate if it is invested in some profitable venture. So that means that although value is being created here too, in the sense that savings are going up and up, so money is accumulating, but this value creation is also anti-value in the sense that we are not creating a value in quantity or at a rate in which it could have been created if this oil money was invested in something profitable. So in this explains his conception of value. That's how I have understood it so far. So value is the actual production of accumulation, actual accumulation, and anti-value is not just non-creation of capitalist value, but also non-creation of capitalist value at quantity and intensity in which it could have been created, this value, if the investment was optimal, for example. So anti-value is created in two ways for not creating capitalist value, and second, not creating it at the rate it has potential to be created given the resources. So this is his concept of value, and this reminds me of Marx's argument, or Marxist argument against capitalism. Marx was all for accumulation for the sake of accumulation, because that would help humanity to overcome scarcity and achieve abundance. But Marx argued that existing capitalism is a system of waste. System of waste in the sense that system of waste, not in the sense that it doesn't create capitalist value. It does, and that's why it's a revolutionary and innovative and progressive system. But it's a system of waste because it doesn't produce value at a rate and quantity at which it could be created given our resources, given technology, given all that. So Marx argued that if we can establish the government of the laborers, the government of the labor, or dictatorship of proletariat, we would be able to overcome this anti-value inherent in traditional capitalism or liberal capitalism, etc. So it seems to me that Harvey has given a name to that concept. Okay, let's go back and see if it makes sense. So let's read it again and then we'll finish it for today. For Harvey, the concept of anti-value provides the key to understanding these dynamics through close reading of Marx. So he has tried from Marx anyway. Harvey argues that value always exists in relation to its negation, anti-value. Well, conceptually, it is there, but Marx's point was that it is actually there in existing capitalism, and that was one of his basic critique of capitalism, that given our technological innovation, we have actually means and resources to overcome scarcity and to actually achieve abundance. But because of the wrong system of liberal and existing capitalism, or individualist capitalism, or market-based capitalism, we are missing that opportunity. We are not actualizing that opportunity. And that was his fundamental argument against the capitalism, and that's the concept, the concept of waste, which is formalized by Harvey here, I think, in terms of anti-value. So Harvey argues that value always exists in relation to its negation, anti-value. Whenever the circulation of capital stalls, value is temporarily negated. Negated in the sense that it's not just that we are not creating value, but it's also it's not that we are not creating value, but we are not creating value which we could have created if we had invested things in better ways. So if commodities cannot be sold, for instance, value cannot be realized. So that's the positive thing. And during a crisis, capital undergoes a general devaluation. A devaluation in the sense that in many ways, one of the ways it goes through devaluation is we just rate of accumulation falls down and the savings cannot be invested. So they are accumulating, but they are not accumulating at the rate they could have. So anti-value is thus omnipresent, a permanently disruptive force in the very gut of capital circulation. So that's the system of waste. The credit system, Harvey argues, helps prevent devaluation by facilitating the path of production to realization. Okay. It also ensures that money taken out of circulation through savings, so savings are anti-value in that sense. Savings are accumulating money as well, so they are creating value in that sense, but they are anti-value to the extent that they are not being invested in more profitable venture in which they could have been if the process, if the cycle was going at its natural rate. So is returned to circulation as interest bearing capital. Also ensures that money taken out of circulation through savings is returned to circulation. So prevent development by facilitating. Okay, just look at these specific lines and then we'll finish it off. So the production cycle slows down, for example, because things are not being sold or bought. So this slowing down of creates anti-value, which is devaluation. But it's not just that. That means this firm is not investing the money it could have if the cycle was going on its normal rate, and so that would be anti-value as well, I guess. But that means that it doesn't take credit, it doesn't borrow, which means savings are not being invested, which means there's anti-value with regard to these savings. Okay, so even though the savings are being accumulated but not at the rate they could have. So when the banks intervene and provide them money to buy those things, for example, and recharge this cycle, so this money is now gone to credit and being invested, so this money is creating more value than it was creating before. So anti-value is reduced here, and then this cycle has increased, so anti-value has reduced here, and probably this firm will invest more, etc. So this is the whole cycle. So if you reverse it, so everything value will change into anti-value. So devalue in terms of devaluation or in terms of no creation at all of any new value, for example. Okay, let's go back to the text. Okay, so the credit system, okay. So if commodities cannot be sold, for instance, value cannot be realized or created. And during a crisis, capital undergoes a general devaluation. Crisis, the same dynamic which we explained in terms of one firm happens at the system level. So that's crisis. Anti-value is thus omnipresent, a permanently disruptive force in the very gut of capital circulation. The credit system, Harvey argues, helps prevent devaluation by facilitating the passage from production to realization. It also ensures that money taken out of circulation through savings, anti-value, is returned to circulation as interest-bearing capital, that is value. So I think we we had a bit of struggle, but we have some grip on his conception of anti-value. So we'll stop here and we'll continue in the next session.